Hello everyone! In today's video, we will present to you the game between Mikhail Tal with white pieces and Jack Miller with black pieces. An Italian opening is played, 2 knights. Tal attacks the center with d4, Miller plays d6. A pawn takes on e5 and an attack on a knight. Miller in this situation decides to play with the knight takes on e4. Tal uses the opportunity to spectacularly continue in his attacking style, sacrificing his bishop on f7 check. Of course, black takes with his king, but another check follows, the queen on d5. Miller covers with the bishop on e6. The queen takes on e4 and thus returns the sacrificed piece. Black is in a worse situation, he cannot castle. The black king is in an awkward position. Several pieces are developed. The rook is moved from a8 to f8, with the idea that the black king retreats to e8. These two black rooks are quite dangerous. The f file is half open, and there may be a danger on the h file. Tal develops his knight. Miller withdraws the king. Tal goes on the attack. Miller retaliates. Now we see an interesting situation. Both players are attacking. You will see who will pass better. The bishop and the rook threaten the pawn on f2, and of course the king and the rook. Tal takes the bishop, Miller takes the pawn, attack the king and check. The king retreats to h1, the bishop takes on e1. Tal also takes the opportunity and takes on f8, loses his knight, and plays a bishop on g5. You see an interesting situation. The white king is on an awkward square. The danger is if the rook goes down to f1. But for now, the white queen defends that square. Miller decides to continue the attack, leaves his bishop where he is, and plays a knight on b4. An attack on the queen, and an attack on c2 pawn. Tal moves the queen but remains to defend the squares f1 and c2. Black takes on c2 and attacks the rook. Tal does not retreat, but plays one intermediate move, which is an attack on the queen on e6. The black queen moves to d6. Tal leaves all the opponent's pieces in place, does not take any, goes on the attack, knight on b5, attacks the black queen, and an attack on the pawn on c7. Miller also plays spectacularly, plays the queen on e5. This is a conscious sacrifice of the queen. He leaves his queen undefended. If Tal decide to take, the rook comes on f1 with checkmate. He also attacks the bishop. But of course Mikhail Tal sees this beforehand and has a clever and brilliant move. Plays a pawn on h4, protects his bishop and leaves his queen hanging. And Miller gives up on taking the free queen and plays a queen on g3, but why didn't he take the white queen? If we go back one move to see what would happen if Miller decided to play a queen take on e2, then white would continue with the attack. Knight takes a pawn on c7 and checkmate. As you can see, the bishop closes all the black squares, the pawn closes the white ones, f7 and d7. We go back to the moves played. After a queen on g3, Tal plays a rook on d1, leaves the black pieces in their places, takes nothing. What is the plan? You will see in the next moves. His opponent brings another piece to the attack, and it is a rook on f2. Excitement on both sides. As you can see, black is one move away from checkmate in case the queen takes on g2. Tal has to get rid of this attack and sacrifices his queen. Miller takes with the bishop. What would happen if Miller takes with his queen? In that case, knight on c7 check, king on f8, pawn on e7. If the king moves to f7, then it is checkmate after the pawn promotion. These are assumptions. In the game, the bishop takes on f2, and Tal plays rook takes on d5. Miller plays queen takes a pawn on h4 and sacrifices his queen. But why sacrifice the queen? Let's go back one move. Whatever Miller would have played, for example, knight on e3, rook on d8 is checkmate. Therefore, Miller sacrifices his queen in order to get rid of the pressure of the dangerous bishop on g5. And of course, there is an exchange of pieces. After this move, Tal plays knight takes on c7 and check. The king moves to f8. Another check on f5. Miller covers with his bishop. The rook returns to square d5 again. Black plays pawn to a5. But after the rook on d7, Black tries to return the knight to the defense. Another check follows. Rook on f7, king on g8. In the next move, Tal sacrifices his rook, takes the bishop. Black plays a knight on c6, does not take the rook. Why? Because if he takes, White would play e7, and nothing stops this pawn from promoting to queen. Tal saves his rook and plays f7. After that, a pawn is played on g6, and Tal responds with e7. After this move, Miller resigned. There are two options. One option is if the king take the rook on f7. White would promote the pawn to queen, and that would be unstoppable. Another option is knight takes on e7, rook takes on e7, and Tal would have more material and would win the game in the next few moves. An interesting ending would be if after d6, Tal played a knight on d5. Whatever Black played, he would be checkmated. For example, a knight on d8. White would play a knight on f6 check. The king would be forced to go to h8, and then a rook on h7, checkmate. I hope you enjoyed in this beautiful game. Thank you for watching.